Hi there, Stephen Oliver. I wanted to talk to you briefly about the state of the industry. As you probably know, I'm the CEO of the National Association of Professional Martial Artists, publisher of Martial Arts Professional Magazine, and Mastering the Martial Arts Business. And frankly, have been a school owner for now 30 years this year. Have been in the martial arts industry since 1969. For some, that's a benefit. For others, it seems like a detriment. But I will tell you that what I want to talk to you about is what the young guns, the new people running the school, what the young people running the school, what the sharpest minds in the school are doing right now is, you may not know it, but my role in the industry has been to be the behind-the-scenes guidance for $500,000 to $1.5 million single school operations and multi-million-dollar school operations. So most of the schools that you'll see in the industry, they're the top 1%, who are really the people who are making a six-figure income, sometimes a high six-figure income, even $1 million a year income, are looking to me behind the scenes to give them guidance and suggestions and advice. What I'm concerned about, frankly, is I'm concerned about you, and I'm concerned about all serious and sincere and quality martial artists who listen to the cacophony of voices that are in the industry right now. Many of those who are giving advice, and some of their advice sounds attractive. Some of it is presented in a charismatic way. Some of it is carried in a convincing way. Some of the advice that you hear spread around the industry right now comes from engaging, likable personalities. It comes from people who truly sound and in many cases are sincere, but much of it is really bad. And what I've come to see a lot in the industry recently is a variety of voices from, one, people who have never really owned a school of their own, or two, if they did own a school, it was never particularly successful. Sometimes it got to be, scale of 1 to 10 up to a 5, and they looked around at their peers and said, wow, I'm doing better than they are, so now I should give consulting advice. Number 3 is there's some people who owned a successful school. A couple good friends of mine owned successful schools 15 years ago, frankly got tired, burnt out, frustrated and irritated with doing that, sold or shut down their schools, and now 15 years later have become voices in the industry teaching you what they wish they had been able to do 15 years ago in order to be successful, but frankly not teaching you what they really did. And in many cases don't really remember what they really did, because your mind and your memory over the years changes the reality of what the situation was. And so what I want to warn you about is a couple of things. One is well-meaning, sincere, stupid people who may be charismatic but may really not understand what our business is all about. And frankly, there have been some that have been fairly successful. You can be a single school operator, have a charismatic, engaging, sincere personality, and still not be able to relay to other people what you did. And the reality of that is that so many times it's just like being a great athlete. I live here in Denver, and John Elway was a great quarterback. But does that mean he's a great coach? I don't know. Perhaps, perhaps not. But very few great athletes become great coaches, and very few school owners who had even some financial success due to their personality and charisma is transferable to other people. It's not a system, it's a person. And so if you could hire that person to come in and do jump splits, 360 kicks, barrel rolls, all the kind of cool stuff that they want to show you, or if you can teach them to come in and be engaging, Tony Robbins-esque on your floor, if you could have that person in your school on a regular basis, 24/7, engage with your students, you might have the same results they did. But if they don't have a system to teach, if they don't really understand the ins and outs of the business, then it doesn't work. Another example are a couple of people who, one, never owned a school. Best case, worked part-time for somebody who owned a mediocre school, and now is a reasoned voice of the industry, sharing with others what should be ignored by the quote-unquote big guys. And I guess I should take it as a compliment that some of these people are directly aiming their daggers and their knives at me, because if you're the leading voice in the industry, or certainly one of the leading voices in the industry, then that's what happens, and I'll take it as a compliment. But just because they want to sling arrows at me, and in order to sling arrows at me, what they do is they take any advice I might give you and just take it as the 100-degree opposite and say that's what really it should be. That doesn't mean that's right, and it doesn't mean that they're either intelligent or educated on how to run the industry, nor frankly have they ever coached anybody else to be successful in the industry, nor frankly does it ever mean that they've ever really understood on a academic and on a intelligent and on a numbers basis what this is all about. Again, I don't want to just sling daggers back at some of those who have been doing it, but I want to warn you is, our industry has been through a lot of ups and downs over the years, and what I am really focusing on right now is, what do the 20-year-olds know who are successful and running hard and attracting a lot of students? What do the 30-year-olds know? My claim to fame was I had 5 schools opened in 18 months when I was 22 years old. And pretty much everybody I talked to was telling me I was too young, couldn't do it, couldn't accomplish it. And I like to take under my wings all the ones who are now like I was. And there are some differences. Now, there's a lot of commonalities, but there are some differences in what's happened today. We've gone through the cycle of having email be a great marketing tool, to having email be free and a useful marketing tool, to having email be mediocre. And you may not realize it, but one of the things that the young guns, we're going to go do a whole webinar series on the young guns of the martial arts industry. So I'll share with you what newer, younger people who really understand social media and really understand new communications methods and really understand apps and things like that, what they can share with you about what you should be doing in your school. And I had the fortunate and unfortunate experience of recently dealing with a lot of old friends, a lot of school owners, and that were with an organization I used to be with, who had been running schools for many years. And they reminded me of the famous quote. It was Ray Kroc's favorite quote. Ray Kroc, the gentleman who really created and expanded McDonald's. He didn't found McDonald's, that was the McDonald's brothers. But Ray Kroc really created that organization. And his favorite quote, I don't think he made it up, but his favorite quote was, "You're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting." And I was astounded by the number of what you would consider very successful school owners, $500,000 a year, maybe grossing 30 and netting 15, maybe grossing 750 and netting 10, 20%. How many of those were on the ripe and rotting end of the spectrum, who truly didn't want to learn anything new, truly felt that their base of knowledge was adequate, and who truly didn't realize that they were on a downward decline? In some cases, a pretty steep and quick. And they would even say to me, well, 3 years ago we were doing a lot better today, but it seems like everything's working and it's all external factors. It's the economy and one thing or another. And they may be right, they may be still doing the same as they were 3 years ago if the economy hadn't taken a turn south. However, they had never adapted. And frankly, if you don't adapt to the world of social media, of text messaging, of apps, and of all the different things that are out there right now, if you don't adapt to that, then you die. And you may say, what does that have to do with teaching, quality martial arts classes? I'm a quality martial artist, and if I teach good students, a lot of others will come to me. Well, that's true and it's not true. You can be an engaging, sincere, and honest martial arts instructor, and still you can have challenges with people who don't want to cooperate. You can have marketing challenges. Perhaps you attract 5 or 6 students a month just because you're a great instructor, but you could be online attracting 30 a month, or you could be out in community events attracting 30 or 40 a month, or you could be, what I saw a lot of these ripe and rotting schools doing is they were massively under maximizing their results. And under maximizing their results meaning they're doing 40,000 a month, they could be doing 80. And they were on the ripe and rotting end of the spectrum and just didn't see it. All of this rambling, I want to hone it back to a couple things. One is, just because somebody comes across as sincere, talks about charity, talks about reaching out in the community, talks about being honest, talks about things, just because they say that doesn't mean that, although all those attributes are important attributes for a successful school owner, it's maybe not important to be successful in 12 months, but successful to be successful 20, 30 years later. You have to be a pillar of the community, and you have to sincerely look beyond yourself. But that doesn't mean that that's adequate, and it doesn't mean that you can forsake effective communication skills, effective persuasion skills. You can't forsake effective marketing skills. You can't ignore online marketing. You can't ignore the content of your website. You can't ignore the most effective and useful follow-up mechanisms today. Some of them are follow-up mechanisms been around for 40 years, and some of them are leading edge right now. We're going to teach you all of those things. What I do want to tell you is always look at who you're taking advice from. Don't take advice from somebody who has had some success, but they're ripe and rotting, because they may be looking back to what worked 10 years ago. They're not looking forward to what's working in this year or next year or the following years, and they're certainly not looking over the horizon. Number two is, don't take advice from somebody who's never run a martial arts school. They don't understand your trials and tribulations. If they haven't had to make the payroll, if they haven't had to deal with the disgruntled students, if they haven't had to deal with the instructor who really doesn't want to do it your way, if they haven't had to deal with all the staffing trauma and turmoil that comes with running a successful school, if they haven't had to deal with the ups and downs and the trials and trauma, they don't understand your life. Number three is, don't take good advice from somebody who doesn't remember what they really did to be successful. If the last they ran a successful school, and I got to tell you, there's some very powerful voices in the industry, powerful meaning charismatic and engaging, and they sound confident. But what I mean also is they never ran a particularly good school. They ran a school that was better than most. But I mean, in our industry, it's the top 1% and the top 10% that you should model. It's not somebody who was at the middle of the pack. And there's some pretty strong voices in the industry who have made it their mission to teach other people what they did, who last did it at a pretty mediocre level 10, 15 years ago, maybe even more. There's others who ran a very successful school many years ago, and now look back and they quit it, threw up their hands in disgust, got burnt out, interesting term, but got burnt out and walked away from it. And now try to teach you what they wish the world had been like when they were running a school, rather than try to teach you what it's really like. And that has two problems. One is it never was proven out there in the field that it worked. But number two is that it's not what they did. It's not what they did to be successful. If they were doing it and doing what they're teaching to do, and 15 years ago were driving a BMW and had a lot of money in the bank and had a nice house and had quality compensation for their staff and had quality facilities for their students and had good student retention and good student service, that's fine. It's useful to know what worked 15 years ago. It's more important to know what's working right now. But it's useful to know that. But if they're not even teaching you that, if they're teaching what they wish it had been like, and in their mind wishing for that, and not really teaching you what it was they did even then run. Don't walk. Run away from that kind of advice. But again, I don't want to dwell on that. We're going to be teaching you a series of webinars and teleconferences, and one of them is going to be the young guns of the industry, and what it is that the up-and-comers are doing, what they know about technology, what they know about people, what they know about motivation, what they know about being cool in today's market, and teaching you what that's all about. Some of it will be, and I would say most of it or all of it, but most of it will be new information to you, and most of it will be really enlightening for what you have to do next year and the following years to be successful, because you don't want to end up on the ripe and rotting stage. And again, I see a lot of people who they're 40, 50 years old and they think, well, I know everything I need to know. I don't need to worry about any of this stuff, and I'm doing just fine. Well, those are the same ones. Maybe a year from now, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, but are then struggling. And I don't know how many people I've talked to that I tried to help them now, and they just didn't want the help. So I hope you'll be paying attention. Number one, to our young guns of the industry, what's really working right now. Number two, to I'm going to frankly take some of the crazy, stupid, dangerous ideas that have been shared in the industry and some of these upcoming videos and tell you why it's not such a good idea. And number 3 is how to maximize your results. And see, maximizing your results isn't just about money. It's about keeping your students as long as possible, creating the best black belt, creating the best student as humanly possible. Have them be happy because they're really receiving what they want. Not what you want to teach them, but they're really receiving what they want. And it's number 3, it's about being a pillar of your community and having your school be as strong 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now as it is today. And if it needs some development, having it be twice or 3 times or 4 times as strong. We've seen some pretty dramatic flameouts recently. We've seen some really bad public relations happen. You don't want that to be you. You want to make sure that 10, 15, 20 years from now you're well regarded in the community, that everybody knows who you are, and that all the community leaders and organizations know who you are. The next thing is you always want to be green and growing, and we're going to be teaching you that leading edge material. But again, I can't say enough. Check out who you're listening to before you do. Check out if they have longevity, if they're teaching systems, if they're teaching systems that work. Look at their immediate circle of influence. Do other really credible people in the industry respect them? Do other really credible people in the industry listen to them? Do they have their feelers out looking for what the next new thing is? And do they have their feelers out and really know what's different about today? I mean, you know, for instance, I could be teaching you all about Yellow Pages. I used to teach seminars on how to maximize the Yellow Pages, what to do, what to look for, when it was useful, when it was not useful. It's irrelevant now. The new Yellow Pages is Google, but it's more complicated and it's simpler. It's easier, it's cheaper, it's more robust. However, you've got to know what's happening today. There's been some massive changes in the last 12 months. There's going to be some more changes. The only thing that's constant about the internet is it's constantly evolving. Do you want to be out on Google Plus? Is that where you should be? Should you be focusing on Google Local? Is Bing the next new thing? Is Yahoo the next new thing? Should you be focusing on lots of text messaging, or should you be focused on direct mail? Should you be focused on email? What is it you should be focusing on? And I'll tell you, we'll walk that through and teach you what the young people in the industry know. And I mean the ones who are very successful that maybe you don't. And we're going to teach you what you need to do to make sure you're green and growing, not ripe and rotting. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and keep an eye out because we're going to be, again, visiting a couple of cities. I'm coming up soon to Washington, D.C., maybe New York. We're going to be in Colorado for a big regional event. I've got a group of the heavy hitters in the industry, again, a lot of them the young guns, called the Inner Circle. So we're going to be constantly evolving with what's really working in the industry, constantly tell you what to ignore and get rid of, and also telling you what's new and growing and what you should be paying attention to so you're not ripe and rotting rather than green and growing. Talk to you soon.